learning is all about making mistakes. My name is Albert Ellison. I'm an independent screenwriter and filmmaker, a creator of a film called The Profession, which will hopefully release sometime later this year or early next year. And you'll be able to get to see it and realize that I suck. It's not a good movie. Mistakes are unavoidable, and for over a year and a half, I had told myself I wasn't going to distribute the film because, frankly, I was pretty embarrassed about it. But I came around, and now I believe that showcasing those mistakes and being public about the process of getting a film or even just a screenplay off the ground is valuable. I tend to categorize the types of mistakes I make into two camps: the technical mistakes and the emotional mistakes. Personally, I believe that emotional mistakes are far more dangerous and damaging than the technical ones. With studying, application, and practice, any technical hurdle can be overcome, but the mistakes in your heart, the emotional ones, can end up sinking your entire project if you're not careful. All that being said, here are 5 mistakes I made when I started writing screenplays, so that you can be better than me. First, I would delete what I wrote. This is an emotional mistake, for sure. There are a couple of layers to this, some more obvious than others. On the surface level, just don't delete your work, obviously. Even if you finish a second draft of your script, I would never recommend deleting that original draft. To build on that, if you start a second draft of your story, I would highly recommend starting it in a fresh document rather than tweaking the pre-existing one. I think it's important to have each of these iterations of the story so that you can look back and draw notes from your comparisons, and also just to, pat yourself on the back for how far you've come. So don't delete your work. Now, the other half of the coin to talk about here is I would recommend to avoid deleting or even majorly tweaking what you write down on the day of. If you get through a good day of writing, don't allow yourself to make serious changes until at least tomorrow. There needs to be some time to digest how you really feel about what you wrote. A lot of times I think something's really good and I'll come back the next day and it's just dog water, like on a reread, but oftentimes your initial feelings will be very deceptive, and it can work on the inverse too. You might end up deleting something that's actually valuable to you. There might be certain times of the day where you're more or less emotionally logical and analytical. Make sure you're treating your own work with respect and only revising them when in a good place mentally. It's really easy for me to personally hate what I wrote only moments after putting it on the page, but it'll be a lot more beneficial to you if you have those words linger than not. Trust me. Secondly, I wrote in a panic. The manner and setting in which you can concentrate is different for each person, but I strongly believe that the quality of your writing is built out of a lifestyle. I would recommend that you try to stay organized, work off a schedule, and when you're writing, all you should be doing is writing so that the characters can really channel out of you. The characters need to be the ones that are taking over in those moments and not thoughts about a million other things. And trust me, I share a room with my brother right now. It serves as a bedroom, a movie theater room, a library, and this workstation all in one. It takes daily upkeep to make sure this place is clean and well organized, but by removing all of the distractions and clutter, my writing flows out far more naturally than if I had, a pair of pants on the floor or something. When I started out, half of the time I had to write was really spent trying to filter through all the junk I had around me, and it made the pressure of my deadlines all the more intense. It felt like if I had a month to write a project, it would really only be about 2 or 3 days, which sounds ridiculous, but it was the truth. If I had 3 months, I had maybe a week to spend on it. Your project will end up way better if you're consistent and take those roadblocks out of the way before you even get stuck on them. Third mistake. I never spoke my dialogue out loud. This is a technical mistake, and one I didn't realize was an oversight until I was on the set of my film with my actors, and none of them could get the lines out. I made it an absolute nightmare for all of us to try and memorize these lines because there was no rhythm, and it was written to be read instead of said. That's the key, is that people talk differently than they write. Say your dialogue out loud as you write it so that you know it can be spoken, but more importantly even, so that you know it would be spoken. This fourth mistake is another emotional one. I didn't give credence to critique trends. During the writing phase for The Profession, I sent my screenplay to my actors, some friends, and also my sister, who's a novelist and book editor. They all had their individual feedback, but there was a consistent through line. Everyone felt one specific beat in the climax was illogical and broke the immersion. My initial response was to be very defensive, of course, because I was partial to how the story beat related to my protagonist's character arc completion. I felt it was necessary, and I was in denial that it was an illogical leap. I buried the criticism deep inside, I harbored it, and I never allowed it to change. As we got closer to the date of production, my lead actor kept asking me if I had thought about any ways to change that section or any tweaks I had made, and to be honest, it sounds horrible, but I just avoided the question. And we ended up filming it as it was originally written, which I think ultimately dampened the relationship I had with my actor during filming, and also the relationship that the actor had to that character. It always hurts a lot, of course, to hear criticisms of your story, even when you ask for it. I do think that the story could have been a bit stronger if I was willing to listen there. Not every scrap of advice or feedback will be worthwhile or applicable to your story, but I would encourage you to give special attention to the problems that are reported from multiple sources, the trends. If 3 or more people have a problem with the same thing, then I would assume that it probably needs to be fixed or reworked at least in some way. Here's my real piece of advice for this section on critique though. Never fix the problem in the exact same way that the critic recommends. The story still has to come from your heart with your voice. Always remember it's still your story, and the only reason it is special in the first place is because it's coming from your unique perspective. So find your way through your voice to fix those problems. My 5th and final mistake is unfortunately not the last mistake I made, but it's the last one for this video. I feel like this is a combination of technical and emotional failings. I didn't allow myself to experiment because I was afraid. This is a big topic that deserves its own video. What I really mean by this is that I am so paralyzed by the fear of needing the script to be perfect, because I am an analytical writer mostly, that I never allow myself to experiment with alternate versions of the scenes I'm working in that were not the original concept I had in my brain. This is honestly still something I struggle with every day. Being able to actually play with your characters will really help you find their most authentic self. Rewriting a scene with a changed bit of context around the character, rewriting a scene assuming the character has a different personality, rewriting a scene changing the tone in the moment. You need to allow yourself to lean into new directions or even change large pieces of the main character as an experiment. I'm currently adapting the comic book Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow into a screenplay, and I've been going through rewriting certain sections with the villain's motivations changing each time, just to see what I can bring out of him to make the most out of that character. There's a pivotal scene near the end of the story where the protagonist Ruthie has to lose something. I've been mixing up what she might actually lose by the end to experiment with what I can see coming out of her as well, and it kind of helps me define her journey. Experimenting will help you hone in on what actually matters to you about your story, and it will help you eliminate the problematic elements that you may have otherwise thought were necessary. Thanks for watching this episode, guys. Mistakes are never fun to make, but they're necessary to make, and that's how you learn. If you enjoyed this video or found it informative, consider leaving it a like and subscribing to the channel. It would help me out a lot. But if you thought that the video could have been better and you had problems with it, leave me some constructive criticisms in the comments below so that I know how to do better next time. Thanks guys, I'll see you later.